Born 7 weeks early, weighing 3 pounds, doctors weren't sure Danielle Ripien would survive. She fought through childhood losses and found love at 17. By 19, she was dead. Hit that like button and subscribe for stories that need telling. Share to spread awareness about domestic violence. Danielle's life started as a fight for survival from day one. On January 11, 1995, in San Francisco, California, Danielle Ripien entered the world as a fighter. Born 7 weeks premature and weighing only 3 pounds, less than half of what she should have weighed. Medical professionals were uncertain whether this tiny baby would survive, but Danielle proved her resilient spirit from her very first breath, defying the odds stacked against her from the beginning. Tragedy would define much of Danielle's early childhood. When she was only 2 years old, her mother Elizabeth lost her battle with cancer, leaving Danielle too young to comprehend the meaning of death, but forever altering the trajectory of her young life. This devastating loss would be the first of many that would shape Danielle's desperate longing for family and belonging. Following her mother's death, Danielle found stability and love with her grandmother, Scarlett Ripien, who stepped up as her guardian. For 12 years, Scarlett provided the nurturing home environment that Danielle desperately needed. However, when Danielle turned 14, tragedy struck again. Scarlett died of old age, and this time Danielle was old enough to fully understand the cruel nature of death and experience the profound loneliness that comes with loss. After Scarlett's passing, Danielle moved in with her stepfather Michael, who had legally become her father. She hoped this arrangement would provide the stability she craved, but fate had other plans. Michael's death added yet another layer of abandonment to Danielle's young life, leaving her feeling utterly alone in the world. Despite these overwhelming losses that would have broken many people, Danielle channeled her experiences into a deep longing for love and her own family from a very young age. These tragedies created within her an intense desire to find the belonging that had been repeatedly torn away from her. Friends who knew Danielle described her as embodying the phrase, small but mighty. Though physically petite, she possessed an inner strength that had carried her through unimaginable hardships. She channeled her energy into cheerleading, her favorite hobby, where her determination and spirit shone brightest. Despite the pain and loss that had marked her childhood, Danielle maintained an optimistic outlook and an infectious smile that touched everyone she met. Her resilient character had been forged through years of heartbreak, creating a young woman who valued family connections above all else. This deep need for stability and belonging would become both her greatest strength and her most dangerous vulnerability. But Danielle's desperate search for the family she'd always longed for would lead her into the arms of someone who seemed perfect, until he wasn't. As Danielle entered her senior year of high school, she was still desperately seeking the stability and family connection that had eluded her throughout her childhood. Her cheerleading coach would later observe how Danielle would always think of her boyfriend's family as her own, because it provided the only real stability in her life, a pattern that would prove both understandable and ultimately dangerous. On October 4, 2012, at a high school football game in Northern California, Danielle's life would change forever when she met her future husband. Skylar Nemitz was 19 years old, having just graduated from high school and joined the Army, preparing to leave for basic training in Georgia. The meeting seemed serendipitous, a chance encounter that would quickly evolve into something much more intense. After their initial meeting at the football game, Danielle and Skylar connected on Facebook and began messaging each other constantly. Their digital conversations quickly became the foundation for what both believed was true love. They became inseparable, spending hours talking online and sharing their dreams for the future. Both fell in love at first sight and knew they wanted to spend the rest of their lives together, a certainty that, in hindsight, seems rushed and concerning. The speed of their relationship progression was alarming to those who knew Danielle well. Within just a few weeks of meeting Skylar, Danielle made the significant decision to move in with him and his mother, Danette. This arrangement fulfilled Danielle's deepest desire. She finally had her own family. Though small, it made her feel like she belonged and was loved, which seemed perfect to her after years of loss and instability. Their first Christmas together became a milestone moment when Skylar proposed to Danielle on top of a mountain. She tearfully accepted, believing their future was finally set in stone. They married on March 7, 2013, just a few months after Skylar finished his basic training, less than 6 months after their first meeting. The newlyweds settled into married life in Lakewood, Washington, while Skylar was stationed at Fort Lewis. Skylar taught Danielle how to drive, and she finished high school while getting a job at a local countertop store. Danielle had big aspirations, including her love for makeup and her dream of opening a nail salon, which led her to start a YouTube channel. where she posted beauty videos showcasing her talents and personality. Like any other young couple, they adopted 2 dogs and made elaborate plans to travel the world before settling down and having children. However, subtle warning signs were already emerging that concerned those closest to Danielle, particularly her best friend Michaela Yingling, who would later tell police that Skylar always made her feel uncomfortable. What seemed like a fairy tale romance was already showing cracks that Danielle's friends could see. But the worst was yet to come. While Danielle appeared to have finally found the family and stability she had always craved, the police investigation would later uncover a much darker truth about their marriage. Behind the facade of happiness that Skylar and Danielle presented to the world lay a disturbing pattern of control, manipulation, and escalating violence that few people were allowed to witness. Michaela Yingling, Danielle's best friend, came forward during the investigation with troubling revelations about Skylar's behavior. She testified that Skylar had always made her uncomfortable, and that he had swept Danielle off her feet immediately upon meeting her. More concerning was Michaela's observation that Skylar closely monitored Danielle's every move, preventing her from hanging out with friends and requiring his explicit permission for her to spend any money behavior that isolated Danielle from her support system. James Peltier, who had served as a father figure to Danielle during her tumultuous childhood, provided investigators with even more alarming details about Skylar's treatment of his wife. James revealed that he had only met Skylar once, describing their interaction as merely shaking hands before Skylar walked back to his car. A strange avoidance that had raised immediate red flags about Skylar's character and intentions. Most disturbing were James's revelations about physical abuse within the marriage. Danielle had confided in James that Skylar was very violent and physical, especially when he had been drinking, which terrified James. During their fights, Skylar would break Danielle's belongings, including her phone, and leave her alone while forcing her to clean the house constantly. These revelations painted a picture of systematic emotional and physical abuse, designed to break down Danielle's independence and self-worth. Danielle's friends began noticing significant changes in her demeanor after marriage. The spark and light that had always shone in her eyes disappeared completely. She became stiff and uncomfortable in social situations. Her smiles appeared forced and fake, and she constantly had to ask Skylar for permission for everything, even the most basic decisions about her own life. Skylar's paranoid jealousy became a defining characteristic of their relationship. He harbored unfounded suspicions that Danielle was having an affair with her boss, Michael Newton, despite absolutely no evidence supporting this belief. His insecurity was so extreme that he suspected Danielle of cheating whenever she even had innocent interactions with any other man, creating an atmosphere of constant tension and accusation. Carrie F., whose husband worked with Skylar at the countertop store, provided crucial evidence of ongoing physical abuse. She testified that Danielle regularly had to cover bruises on her arms, with long-sleeved shirts bruises that were directly caused by Skylar's violent outbursts. Carrie also confirmed that while Danielle's boss, Michael, was attractive, their relationship remained strictly professional, completely contradicting Skylar's paranoid accusations and jealous rage. The extent of Skylar's controlling behavior became even clearer when he accused Danielle of having an affair with Jeremy, an old high school friend, simply because they had innocently met up as friends while Skylar was away for training in Yakima. This incident demonstrated how Skylar's jealousy had reached dangerous levels of paranoia and control. As Skylar's jealousy and violence escalated, October 16, 2014, would mark the day when his controlling behavior would turn deadly. October 16, 2014, began like any other day, but it would end with tragedy that shattered any remaining illusions about Danielle and Skylar's marriage. Skylar had been away for 3 weeks of field training in Yakima, Washington, leaving Danielle alone at home with their 2 beloved dogs. During this separation, Danielle had something wonderful to look forward to. Her sister Ashley was about to give birth, and Danielle was excited about finally becoming an aunt, a joy she would tragically never experience. Throughout that final day, Danielle spent her time on FaceTime with her best friend Michaela Yingling, appearing genuinely excited about Skylar finally coming home after his extended absence. Her anticipation was evident in everything she did. She placed candles strategically around the house to create a romantic atmosphere for their reunion, and took care of domestic tasks like bathing their dogs and preparing the house meticulously for Skylar's homecoming. Earlier that day, Skylar had sent Danielle a specific text message requesting that she purchase a particular bottle of rum and whiskey for their evening together. This request held special significance because Skylar wasn't allowed to drink alcohol on the base during his field training operation, making this homecoming celebration particularly important to him. Danielle dutifully completed this task, wanting everything to be perfect for their reunion. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the final moments of normalcy unfolded exactly as Danielle had hoped. She was once again on FaceTime with Michaela when Skylar arrived home and joined the video call to greet his wife's best friend. At that precise moment, everything appeared absolutely perfect. A loving reunion between husband and wife after weeks of separation. The couple seemed happy and excited to be together again. This would be the very last time anyone would see Danielle alive. Less than 15 minutes after that final FaceTime call ended, the quiet atmosphere of the Lakewood apartment complex was suddenly shattered by a loud crack that broke the afternoon silence like thunder. After this jarring noise echoed through the building, everything initially returned to an eerie normalcy. But then came frantic, desperate knocking on a neighbor's door. On the other side of that door was someone yelling, pleading, and desperately begging for help with an urgency that immediately alarmed the residents. The neighbors were completely caught off guard by this sudden outburst of sound and raw emotion that had disrupted their peaceful afternoon. When they cautiously opened their door, they found Skylar Nemitz standing there, clearly upset and appearing scared, frantically pleading with them to call emergency services immediately. Before Skylar broke down completely and became incoherent, all he could manage to say through his apparent distress was the devastating news that would change everything. "It's Danielle. She's dead." The neighbors called 911 in a complete panic, reporting to the emergency operators that they had heard loud noises and banging sounds coming from the Nemitz home just moments before Skylar's desperate plea for help. During that crucial 911 call, Skylar provided his first explanation to the emergency operators about what had happened inside their home. He claimed that his wife had accidentally hurt herself while cleaning a rifle. This explanation seemed plausible, given that the couple frequently visited firing ranges together on date nights, and Skylar's gun collection had grown to 15 weapons since joining the Army. For Danielle's 19th birthday, Skylar had even given her a blue automatic rifle, the same rifle he now claimed she was cleaning when it accidentally discharged. But when police and emergency services arrived at the scene, what they discovered would immediately raise serious questions about Skylar's account of an accidental shooting. When police and emergency responders arrived at the Nemitz home, they encountered a scene that would immediately raise serious questions about Skylar's claims of an accidental shooting. They found Danielle slouched over a table, completely motionless, with her computer positioned directly in front of her, having been fatally shot. The detectives were stunned by what they observed and needed answers immediately, with Skylar being the only person who could have witnessed this horrific incident. Officers first observed Skylar near his car, appearing upset but displaying behavior that immediately raised red flags among the experienced investigators. While he appeared to be crying and in distress, police noticed something distinctly unusual about his emotional display. His eyes were closed tight and his face was twisted in apparent anguish. But there were no actual tears visible on his cheeks. He was only making the sounds associated with crying without producing any real tears. This theatrical display of grief would become a recurring pattern throughout the entire investigation. Almost immediately, Skylar's story about the events began changing in significant ways. Initially, he had told neighbors during the frantic 911 call that Danielle had hurt herself while cleaning a rifle. However, when questioned directly by police officers, he provided a completely different account of what had transpired. Now he claimed that Danielle was sitting at her computer while he was cleaning the gun in the same room. According to this new version of events, even though the magazine had been properly removed from the weapon, he didn't realize the gun still contained one live bullet in the chamber. While working on the gun that was aimed directly at Danielle, he accidentally pulled the trigger, sending a fatal bullet through her body. This explanation required investigators to believe that an experienced soldier would make such a fundamental safety error. During Skylar's transportation to the police station in a car equipped with recording devices, investigators captured his continued emotional manipulation attempts. He alternated between telling Danielle he loved her, asking God for forgiveness, crying about how his military career might be over, and yelling Danielle's name while repeatedly saying things like, "I didn't mean to do it." Observers noted that sometimes Skylar would appear to be crying intensely, but have absolutely no tears visible on his face, while other times he would be very serious and alert, especially when police officers wanted to question him about specific details. The most damning evidence against Skylar came from his complete inability to maintain a consistent story about what had happened. During 5 grueling hours of questioning at the police station, Skylar changed his account 8 different times, frustrating investigators who were trying to piece together the truth. Every single aspect of his story varied dramatically. The location of the magazine, when exactly he was cleaning the gun, how the shot was fired, and who was actually holding the weapon when it discharged. This constant shifting of crucial details was driving the police to complete frustration and making it abundantly clear that Schuyler wasn't telling the truth about the circumstances surrounding his wife's death. On his 9th attempt at explaining the events, Schuyler finally changed his story again. And on his 10th try, he admitted that he was indeed the one who pulled the trigger and pointed the gun directly at Danielle, but maintained he didn't know the weapon was loaded. The ballistics evidence definitively contradicted every aspect of Schuyler's various claims. The bullet's trajectory clearly showed that if Schuyler's gun had been positioned at his waist as he claimed in several previous statements, Danielle would have been struck in a completely different location on her body. The bullet's path through her body demonstrated conclusively that the gun had to be held at shoulder height for Danielle to sustain the fatal wound to the back of her head. This proved beyond doubt that Schuyler was lying, and revealed the terrifying reality that the gun was pointed deliberately close to Danielle while she wasn't looking. Additionally, Schuyler had sustained an injury to the index finger of his dominant hand, the same hand he used to hold firearms, an injury more consistent with firing a weapon than with cleaning one. With mounting evidence contradicting every aspect of Schuyler's story, police were ready to make an arrest. But the legal battle was just beginning. With overwhelming evidence contradicting Schuyler's constantly changing stories, police arrested him on first-degree murder charges. The evidence supporting the arrest included the ballistics analysis that completely contradicted his claims, his bizarre behavior immediately following Danielle's death, and additional evidence including angry text messages between the couple that revealed the true instability and volatility of their relationship. Schuyler was held in Pierce County Jail with a substantial $1 million bond. Despite the mounting evidence against her son, Schuyler's mother, Danette, stood by him with unwavering dedication and belief in his innocence. Her maternal loyalty, while understandable, would prove costly both financially and emotionally. Determined to secure the best possible defense for Schuyler, Danette made tremendous personal sacrifices to support his legal battle. She sold her house, car, and expensive jewelry to pay Schuyler's substantial bail and hired Michael Stewart, one of Washington's most respected and expensive defense attorneys, to represent her son. The trial began on January 21, 2016, approximately 2 years after Danielle's tragic death. The prosecution built their comprehensive case on multiple strong foundations. Testimonies from Danielle's family and friends that revealed the disturbing pattern of abuse within the marriage. The definitive ballistic analysis that completely disproved all of Schuyler's various accounts, and his bizarre, theatrical behavior immediately following Danielle's death that suggested deception rather than genuine grief. The prosecution argued convincingly that a soldier with extensive military training and experience who knew firearms inside and out could not accidentally fire a bullet that killed his wife. They emphasized Schuyler's lengthy history with weapons, noting that he had first handled a gun at the remarkably young age of 4 and had used an automatic rifle, the exact same type that killed Danielle when he was only 14 years old. His years of rigorous military training in proper gun handling, disassembly, and comprehensive safety protocols for cleaning and maintenance made the accident theory completely implausible to reasonable observers. The prosecution's theory centered on Schuyler losing his violent temper after yet another heated argument with Danielle about his paranoid suspicions of infidelity, leading him to shoot her execution style while she wasn't looking and couldn't defend herself. They also pointed to Schuyler's callous behavior immediately after the shooting. Instead of grieving his beloved wife as any loving husband would, he had dumped all the alcohol he had specifically asked Danielle to purchase down the sink, suggesting consciousness of guilt. During the trial proceedings, Schuyler continued his poor acting performance, attempting to cry without producing any real tears, never showing a genuinely shaking voice or authentic signs of emotion that would indicate real grief. Observers noted the complete absence of sadness or genuine regret in his eyes for what he had done to the woman he claimed to love. The defense, led by the experienced Michael Stewart, pursued a different strategy, attempting to get the serious first-degree murder charge reduced to something less severe. Stewart argued that Schuyler never intended to kill his wife, characterizing the incident as a terrible accident with Schuyler bearing only partial responsibility for Danielle's death. After a month-long trial filled with emotional testimony and compelling evidence, the jury reached their verdict on March 3, 2016. Schuyler was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter but not first-degree murder. The prosecution had failed to convince the jury that Schuyler had killed his wife with clear premeditation and intent. This verdict was devastating for Danielle's family and friends, who felt that justice had not been fully served. The verdict was just the beginning. Schuyler's sentencing would prove even more controversial, and his legal team wasn't finished fighting. On March 25, 2016, Schuyler Nemitz received the maximum sentence possible for his manslaughter conviction, 13.5 years in prison, with an expected release date of 2029. However, this sentence would prove to be far from the end of the legal proceedings, and what followed would demonstrate a shocking lack of remorse and responsibility for his actions. In July 2020, Schuyler filed an appeal that revealed his continued refusal to accept accountability for destroying Danielle's life. His legal team argued that while he had received the maximum sentence for manslaughter, the court had failed to properly consider his young age as a significant mitigating factor that should have resulted in a lighter punishment. Schuyler's lawyers characterized his sentence as a complete miscarriage of justice, claiming the jury didn't adequately account for his youth and immaturity when imposing the harshest possible sentence. Most outrageously, the defense argued that being careless is the very hallmark of youth, suggesting that Schuyler's age somehow excused his careless behavior that resulted in his wife's death. This argument carried deeply troubling implications. The suggestion that young people can kill others and escape full consequences simply because youth is naturally associated with carelessness and poor judgment. The court rejected this appeal decisively, making it abundantly clear that youth and carelessness do not provide permission or excuse to commit horrific crimes. Schuyler would remain incarcerated until his scheduled release in 2029, serving his full sentence without reduction. The inadequate sentence had a profound and lasting impact on Danielle's family and loved ones. The 13.5-year sentence felt nowhere near sufficient for the justice Danielle deserved after dying so cruelly at the hands of her abusive husband. James Peltier, who had served as a loving father figure to Danielle despite not being her biological parent, was completely heartbroken by the outcome. His most cherished memory of Danielle running through the front door to give him an enthusiastic bear hug would now be forever tinged with the devastating sadness that he would never see her radiant smile or hear her infectious laugh again. Ashley, Danielle's sister, had dreamed of watching her grow up, have children of her own, and live a genuinely happy life with a truly loving partner who would cherish and protect her. Instead, Ashley would never witness these precious milestones because Danielle's promising life was cut tragically short at just 19 years old by someone she had trusted completely to protect her. On October 26, 2014, a candlelight vigil was held for Danielle, where people shared touching stories about how she had positively changed so many lives simply by being her authentic, caring self. The tragic injustice remains that a monster who killed his wife out of jealousy, control, and manipulation received such a light sentence for destroying a life that was full of hope, promise, and love.